residential sales comparison and income approaches. Help. Documents. Email instructor. CH7 location adjustments. PG17 market area boundaries. Notes print. Leave a comment. Market area boundaries. Here is a procedure for establishing market area boundaries. Visit the immediate subject area and do a preliminary assessment of its features and condition. Study the factors that attract people to the community. Look for major employers, universities, shopping centers, natural resources, recreational and cultural facilities, and so on. Drive or walk around the surrounding area and notice the physical characteristics such as use, age, and condition of other properties. Note on a map where conditions start to change. Often changes occur at a river, railroad track, highway, or even where street names change from northeast to southeast or a zip code changes. Sketch likely neighborhood boundaries on your map to create an initial sketch of areas of influence. Test your hypothesis with demographic data. This can be information from a census, chamber of commerce, online service, or real estate sales database. Other sources might include real estate salespeople and other appraisers. You could ask the owner or neighbors what they consider to be their neighborhood or market area. Are there neighborhood associations or block groups? These are made up of people who assume there is a commonality of interests among themselves. End of page. Chapter start. 43%. 43%.
Residential sales comparison and income approaches, Chapter 7, location adjustments, page 18. Check your understanding. This quiz has a total of 3 questions. There will be 1 question per page. You must achieve 66% to pass this quiz. Start quiz. Number 1. The definition of neighborhood has changed from a grouping of blank to a grouping of blank people, buildings, and uses. A. Diverse and similar. B. Homogeneous and congruous. C. Complementary and supplementary. Or D. Congruous and identical. I'm going to go C, complementary and supplemental. Number 2. What is one of the best ways to determine neighborhood boundaries? A, driving around the area. B, checking congressional voting districts. C, drawing lines by zip code. Or D, asking the Chamber of Commerce. I'm going to go A, driving around the area. And number 3, the geographic region from which a majority of demand comes and in which the majority of competition is located is the definition of A, neighborhood, B, district, C, market area, or D, all of these. I'm going to go C, market area. Final answer. Assessment completed. Finished. You passed passed, you got a 66.7%. So remember, number one, the definition of neighborhood has changed from a grouping of blank to a grouping of blank people, buildings, and uses. You said complementary and supplementary. That was incorrect. The correct answer was homogeneous and congruous. The definition of neighborhood has changed from a grouping of homogeneous to a grouping of congruous people, buildings, and uses. Number two, what is one of the best ways to determine neighborhood boundaries? You said driving around the area, and that is correct. And number three, the geographic region from which a majority of demand comes and in which the majority of competition is located is the definition of. You said a market area, and that is correct.
Whenever possible, your comparables should be in the same market area as your subject. If they are subject to the same market forces, it makes one less thing you have to worry about and takes away an adjustment you might have to make for differences in location. You might have to make exceptions, however, when few sales have occurred in the neighborhood, the subject is in a rural area, or the subject is unusual in style or construction, for example, a geodesic dome or a log cabin in a neighborhood of traditional ranches. Be careful, because not all homes in a particular neighborhood or market area are appropriate comparables. A house with a beautiful view would be worth considerably more than a similar house located beneath high voltage power lines, even if both are in the same subdivision. Another home may have a higher value due to being adjacent to a green belt, or a lower value because of being next to a noisy street. Two condominium units in the same building may be identical in size, age, and layout, but they could have quite different values if one is on the first floor and the other is on the 10th floor. Even if they were on the same floor, value differences might be attributable to a view overlooking the golf course instead of the dumpster.
Residential sales comparison and income approaches. Help. Documents. Email instructor. CH7 location adjustments. PG20 site factors. Notes. Leave a comment. Site factors. In developing an appraisal, we need to analyze the site itself and its attributes. These would include traffic, exposure, lot sizes and density, topography, access, utilities, environmental restrictions, soil conditions, zoning. End of page. Chapter start. 43%. Neighborhood, district, and market area neighborhood. a group of complementary land uses, a congruous grouping of inhabitants, buildings, or business enterprises. 1 district, a neighborhood characterized by homogeneous land use, e.g., apartment, commercial, industrial, agricultural. 2 market area, the geographic region from which a majority of demand comes and in which the majority of competition is located. Depending on the market, a market area may be further subdivided into components such as primary, secondary, and tertiary market areas. Or the competitive market area may be distinguished from the general market area. 3. The definition of neighborhood recognizes that a residential neighborhood is not composed just of a whole bunch of similar houses, but also the support services that are nearby that make it possible to live there. Within a single residential area, you may find numerous subdistricts, such as production-style subdivisions, custom-built subdivisions, condos, townhouses, rural, semi-rural areas, senior developments, multifamily properties designed as rentals. Historic areas. Market area is a broader terminology that avoids the somewhat confusing definitions of the other 2 terms. Neighborhood and district can include both neighborhoods and districts, or a combination thereof. Concentrates more on where people live and work, and focuses on competition and defines itself by looking at reactions of typical buyers and sellers for that type of property. 1. The Dictionary of Real Estate Appraisal, 6th edition, Appraisal Institute, Chicago, Illinois 2015, 2 ibid. 3 ibid. Residential sales comparison and income approaches. Help. Documents. Email instructor. CH7 location adjustments. PG21 traffic. Notes. Leave a comment. Traffic. Traffic can be a strong detrimental factor in residential properties. Developers spend time and effort in designing new subdivisions with winding streets, cul-de-sacs, and dead ends. A property location on a cul-de-sac, with no through traffic, can add considerable value to a residence. Next best is a location on a feeder street that leads into major through streets. Of course, traffic includes not just street traffic, but rail and air as well. And street traffic includes trucks as well as cars. The traffic does not have to be directly in front of a property, or even within sight to create a noise problem. End of page. Chapter start. 43%. Residential sales comparison and income approaches. Help. Documents. Email instructor. CH7 location adjustments. PG22 exposure. Notes. Leave a comment. Exposure. In northern regions, a southern exposure may be preferable. In mountain valleys, a northern exposure is a good thing for ski areas, but it could leave a home in the shade almost all day and leave snow on the ground until late spring. Even in other areas, a southern exposure may be a requisite for solar heating. In southern areas, a western exposure may be desirable to allow the cooling afternoon breezes. At the seashore, an exposure to the sea breezes may be beneficial. In the Midwest, an open exposure to the west can lead to windy conditions. You may look to build a house behind a windbreak of trees or a hill. End of page. Chapter start. 44%.